Sometimes the most powerful moments in life come from the smallest voices asking the biggest questions. What happens when a successful CEO's carefully planned world collides with a 7-year-old's desperate wish? What begins as a simple request from a child becomes a journey that transforms not just one man's perspective, but reveals the extraordinary power of human connection in the most unexpected places. This is the true story of Marcus Williams, a billionaire tech entrepreneur who thought he had everything figured out, until one rainy afternoon when a little girl's innocent plea changed the course of his life forever. It's about finding family where you least expect it, discovering that success means nothing without someone to share it with, and learning that sometimes the greatest courage comes from saying yes to love when you're terrified of losing it. What started as pretending for one day became the most real thing either of them had ever experienced. Marcus Williams adjusted his Italian silk tie as he stepped out of his black Bentley into the Seattle rain. At 38, he was one of the youngest African-American CEOs to build a tech empire worth over $2 billion. His company, Williams Digital Solutions, had revolutionized cloud computing for small businesses worldwide. Every morning brought new deals, new acquisitions, and new reasons to celebrate his success. Yet today felt different somehow, though he couldn't pinpoint why. The rain pelted against his umbrella as he walked toward the entrance of Children's Hospital of Seattle. This wasn't his usual scene. Board meetings in glass towers, networking events in five-star hotels, and investor presentations in sleek conference rooms were more his speed. But his assistant had insisted he make this appearance at the hospital's annual charity gala planning committee. Good publicity, she had said. The community needed to see successful businesspeople giving back. As Marcus approached the hospital's main entrance, he noticed a small figure huddled under the narrow overhang near the gift shop. The child couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old, wearing a faded pink dress that had seen better days and clutching a worn stuffed elephant. Her dark hair hung in loose curls around her shoulders, and even from a distance, Marcus could see she had been crying. Something about the scene made him pause. In his world of calculated moves and strategic decisions, Marcus rarely acted on impulse. Every choice was measured, every risk assessed. But seeing this little girl alone outside a hospital triggered an instinct he didn't know he possessed. He folded his umbrella and approached her slowly, not wanting to frighten her. "Hey there," he said gently, crouching down to her level. "Are you okay? Where are your parents?" The little girl looked up at him with enormous brown eyes that seemed to hold more sadness than any child should carry. She wiped her nose with the back of her hand and clutched her elephant tighter. "Mama's inside," she whispered. "She's been sick for a really long time." Marcus felt his chest tighten. He had built his fortune by reading people, understanding what they needed, and providing solutions. But this was different. This wasn't a business problem he could solve with money or connections. This was a child in pain, and he found himself completely unprepared for the emotions it stirred in him. "What's your name?" he asked, settling down beside her on the concrete step, not caring about his expensive suit. "Emma," she said quietly. "Emma Rodriguez. I'm 7 3/4." Marcus smiled at her precision. "Well, Emma Rodriguez, I'm Marcus. Why are you out here in the rain instead of inside with your mama?" Emma's lower lip trembled. "The nurses said I had to wait here while they did tests. Mama's been in the hospital for 2 months now. The doctors keep saying words I don't understand, but I know she's really sick because she doesn't smile anymore, and she used to smile all the time." The rawness in her voice hit Marcus like a physical blow. He had spent years building walls around his emotions, focusing on business, on success, on anything but the messy complexities of human connection. His own childhood had been difficult enough. Raised by his grandmother after his parents died in a car accident when he was 10, he had learned early that depending on others only led to disappointment. Better to rely on himself, to build something solid and permanent that couldn't be taken away. "Tell me about your mama," Marcus said, surprised by his own words. He had a meeting to get to, important people waiting for him upstairs. But something about Emma made him want to stay. Emma's face brightened slightly. "Her name is Sophia, and she makes the best pancakes in the whole world. She works 2 jobs to take care of me, and she always reads me stories before bed. She says I'm her sunshine." The light in her eyes dimmed again. "But Now she's too tired to read stories. And sometimes she forgets things. Yesterday, she forgot my name for a little while. Marcus felt a familiar ache in his chest, one he had spent years trying to suppress. He knew what it was like to watch someone you love slip away, to feel helpless in the face of illness and loss. When his grandmother had gotten sick during his senior year of college, he had thrown himself into his studies and, later, his work, using success as a shield against the pain of losing her. "That must be really scary for you," he said honestly. Emma nodded, tears starting to fall again. "I try to be brave for Mama, but sometimes I just want to cry. And I really, really miss having a daddy. Mama says mine went to heaven when I was a baby, but sometimes I pretend other nice men might want to be my daddy, just for a little while." The innocence in her words gutted him. Marcus had never considered having children. His life was ordered, predictable, focused entirely on building his empire. Relationships were complicated, messy, potentially devastating. He had dated over the years, but never seriously, never with the intention of building something lasting. The risk of loss was too great. But looking at Emma, seeing her desperate need for connection, for security, for someone to simply care about her well-being, Marcus felt something shift inside him. Maybe it was the recognition of his own childhood loneliness, or maybe it was simply that her honesty cut through all his carefully constructed defenses. "Emma," he said carefully, "what if someone wanted to be your friend? Not your daddy, but someone who cared about you and your mama?" She looked at him with such hope that it nearly broke his heart. "Would you really want to be my friend, even though you're probably really important and busy?" Marcus laughed despite himself. "How do you know I'm important and busy?" Emma pointed to his expensive suit, his watch, his shoes. "You look like the men on TV who run big companies. But you also look kind. Kind is more important than important, don't you think?" The wisdom in her observation stunned him. Here was a 7-year-old child, facing the potential loss of her mother, living in uncertainty and fear, yet still capable of recognizing kindness as the highest virtue. Marcus realized he had spent so many years focused on being important that he had forgotten how to simply be kind. "You know what, Emma? You're absolutely right. Kind is definitely more important than important." They sat together in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching the rain create rivers in the parking lot. Marcus found himself thinking about his own childhood, about all the times he had wished for someone to simply sit with him when the world felt too big and scary to navigate alone. His grandmother had done her best, but she was elderly and tired, and Marcus had learned early to carry his burdens by himself. "Mr. Marcus?" Emma's small voice interrupted his thoughts. "Yes. Do you think my mama is going to be okay?" The doctors talk to each other in whispers, and the nurses always look sad when they check on her. The question hung in the air between them. Marcus knew he should give her hope, should say something reassuring and optimistic. But something about Emma's straightforward honesty made him want to be equally honest with her. "I don't know, Emma. I hope so. But whatever happens, you're going to be okay. You're one of the strongest, kindest people I've ever met, and that's going to carry you through whatever comes next." Emma studied his face carefully, as if trying to determine whether he was telling her the truth. After a moment, she nodded solemnly. "Mama always says I'm stronger than I think I am. She says that's why God gave me such a big heart, because I can handle taking care of other people too." The maturity in her words was heartbreaking. This little girl was already thinking about taking care of others when she desperately needed someone to take care of her. Marcus made a decision that would have seemed impossible to him just an hour earlier. "Emma, how would you feel if I came to visit you and your mama sometimes? Not as a daddy, but as a friend who cares about both of you." Emma's entire face lit up with a smile that was like sunshine breaking through storm clouds. "You would really do that? You would want to visit us?" "I would like that very much," Marcus said, and realized he meant it completely. Just then, a nurse appeared at the hospital entrance. "Emma, your mama is asking for you. The tests are finished." Emma jumped up, clutching her stuffed elephant. But before she ran inside, she turned back to Marcus. "Mr. Marcus, thank you for sitting with me. And thank you for being my friend. That's the nicest thing that's happened to me in a really long time." As she disappeared through the automatic doors, Marcus found himself standing outside room 314, his hand raised to knock, but frozen in uncertainty. Through the small window in the door, he could see Emma sitting on a chair beside a hospital bed, her legs swinging as she chattered quietly to someone he couldn't see. The stuffed elephant sat in her lap, and she was using her hands to animate some stories she was telling. Taking a deep breath, Marcus knocked gently and waited for permission to enter. Emma's voice called out cheerfully, "Come in." When she saw him, her face exploded into the brightest smile he had ever witnessed. "Mama, this is Mr. Marcus, the friend I told you about. He sat with me in the rain, and he was really nice to me." Marcus stepped into the room and felt his breath catch. The woman in the bed was clearly Emma's mother, sharing the same warm brown eyes and gentle features. But Sofia Rodriguez looked incredibly fragile, her skin pale and drawn, her thick dark hair covered by a colorful scarf. Despite her obvious illness, she was smiling at her daughter with such pure love that Marcus felt like an intruder on something sacred. "Mama, Mr. Marcus said he wants to be our friend. Isn't that wonderful?" Emma bounced in her chair, her enthusiasm infectious despite the somber setting. Sophia's eyes moved from her daughter to Marcus, studying him with the careful assessment of a mother protecting her child. "Emma told me you were very kind to her while she was waiting. Thank you for that. I'm Sofia Rodriguez." Her voice was soft but strong, carrying a slight accent that spoke of her Hispanic heritage. Marcus stepped forward, suddenly, feeling awkward in his expensive suit in this sterile hospital room. "I'm Marcus Williams. Your daughter is an extraordinary little girl, Mrs. Rodriguez. She's lucky to have you as her mother." Sophia's expression softened slightly. "Please, call me Sophia. And thank you, though I think I'm the lucky one. Emma has been my strength through all of this." She reached out to smooth her daughter's hair, and Marcus noticed how thin her hand had become. Emma climbed up onto the bed beside her mother, careful not to disturb any of the tubes or wires. "Mr. Marcus, tell Mama about your job. You said you help people with computers, right?" Marcus found himself sitting in the chair Emma had vacated, drawn into their warm dynamic despite his usual discomfort with personal situations. "I run a company that helps small businesses use technology to grow and succeed." It's not as exciting as Emma makes it sound. Sophia's eyes showed a flicker of recognition. "Williams Digital Solutions? I've heard of your company. You're that Marcus Williams." Her tone held a note of surprise and perhaps wariness. "Guilty as charged," Marcus said with a small smile. "Though right now I'm just someone who met your incredible daughter and couldn't walk away." Emma looked confused. "Are you super famous or something? Mama looks like she knows who you are." Sophia and Marcus exchanged a glance over Emma's head. "Mr. Williams is a very successful businessman, Mija. He's probably much too busy for regular people like us." The comment stung because Marcus recognized the truth in it. Until today, he had lived in a world completely separate from people like Sophia and Emma. His wealth and success had insulated him from real struggle, real hardship, real human connection. But something about Emma's innocent request for friendship had stripped away all those barriers. "Actually, Sophia, I was hoping you might let me visit Emma sometimes. She mentioned you've been here for 2 months, and I imagine that's been difficult for both of you." Sophia's protective instincts were clearly on high alert. "Mr. Williams, I appreciate your kindness to Emma, I really do. But we're not charity cases. We don't need your pity." The pride in her voice was unmistakable, and Marcus respected her for it. Even facing illness and uncertainty, Sophia was determined to maintain her dignity and independence. It reminded him of his own grandmother, who had worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table rather than accept handouts from neighbors who pitied the old woman raising her grandson alone. "This isn't about pity," Marcus said honestly. "This is about the fact that your daughter asked me to be her friend, and I said yes. I don't take promises to children lightly, especially not to a child like Emma." Emma looked between her mother and Marcus with the intuitive understanding that children possess. "Mama, Mr. Marcus is nice. He listened to me when I was sad, and he didn't act like I was bothering him. Please, can he be our friend?" Sophia studied Marcus's face for a long moment. "Emma, would you go ask the nurse for some ice chips for Mama? My mouth is feeling dry." Emma nodded seriously and slipped off the bed. "I'll be right back. Mr. Marcus, don't leave while I'm gone, okay?" "I'll be right here," Marcus promised. Once Emma had left the room, Sophia's demeanor shifted. The protective mother softened slightly, revealing a woman who was exhausted, scared, and trying to hold everything together for her daughter's sake. Mr. Williams, can I speak frankly with you? Please do. I don't know how much longer I have. The doctors try to be optimistic, but I can read their faces. I can feel my body failing. Her voice broke slightly before she steadied herself. Emma is everything to me. She's smart, kind, loving, and she deserves so much more than what I can give her right now. But I won't have her hurt by someone who makes promises they can't keep. The raw honesty in her words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Here was a woman facing the unthinkable, and her only concern was protecting her daughter from additional pain. It was the kind of selfless love Marcus had read about, but never truly understood until this moment. Sophia, I understand your concerns. You don't know me, and you have every reason to be protective. But I need you to understand something too. In the 38 years I've been alive, I've never met anyone who made me want to be a better person just by existing. Your daughter did that in 30 minutes. I'm not making this offer lightly. Sophia wiped away a tear that had escaped despite her attempts to stay strong. She has that effect on people. Even here in the hospital, the nurses fight over who gets to work with Emma. She draws people in with that huge heart of hers. Where is her father's family? Does Emma have other relatives who could help? Sophia's expression darkened. Emma's father died in a construction accident when she was 18 months old. His family blamed me, said I was just after his money, which was ridiculous because he didn't have any. They wanted nothing to do with us. My own family is back in Mexico, and they can't afford to come here or take care of Emma even if they could. The isolation Sophia faced was staggering. She was fighting for her life while trying to care for a 7-year-old daughter with no support system, no family to fall back on, no safety net of any kind. Marcus thought about his own resources, his connections, his ability to solve problems with phone calls and checkbooks. For the first time, his wealth felt less like an achievement and more like a responsibility. What can I do to help? The words came out before Marcus could stop them, but he realized he meant them completely. You really want to help? Sophia asked, studying his face intently. Yes, I really do. Sophia was quiet for a moment, considering. Emma's been asking about father-daughter activities at school. There's a daddy-daughter dance coming up in a few weeks, and she's been pretending she doesn't care about it. But I know she does. She watches the other kids talk about what they're going to wear, who's taking them, and I can see her heart breaking a little more each time. Marcus felt his chest tighten. She asked me today if I would pretend to be her daddy, just for one day. She told me. It broke my heart because she's never asked for anything like that before. Emma has always understood that it's just the two of us, and she's been okay with that. But being here, being sick, watching her have to be so much stronger than any 7-year-old should have to be, it's made me realize how much she's missing. The weight of Sophia's words settled over Marcus like a blanket. Emma wasn't just asking for someone to take her to a dance. She was asking for someone to fill a void that Sophia's illness had made impossible to ignore. The little girl who had been her mother's strength and sunshine was finally admitting she needed someone to be strong for her. Sophia, what if it wasn't just pretending for one day? What if I could be a real friend to Emma, someone she could count on? Mr. Williams. Marcus. Please call me Marcus. Marcus, you don't understand what you're offering. Emma doesn't do anything halfway. If she accepts you as a friend, she'll love you completely, trust you absolutely, and expect you to be there when she needs you. That's just who she is. And if you let her down, if you decide this was just a nice gesture but not something you can sustain, it will devastate her. She's already facing the possibility of losing me. I won't let her go through that kind of abandonment again. The fierceness in Sophia's voice made Marcus understand that despite her illness, despite her vulnerability, she was still very much Emma's protector. And she was right to be protective. Marcus had spent years avoiding exactly the kind of emotional commitment Sophia was describing. But something fundamental had shifted in him since meeting Emma. Sophia, I've built my entire adult life around avoiding exactly what you're describing. I've stayed away from relationships, from commitments, from anything that might require me to put someone else's needs before my own success. But your daughter asked me to be her friend, and for the first time in my life, I want to say yes to something that has nothing to do with business or profit or achievement. I want to be the kind of person Emma already thinks I am. Sophia stared at him for a long moment, and Marcus could practically see her weighing his words against her maternal instincts. Why? What is it about Emma that makes you willing to change your entire life philosophy? Marcus thought about how to explain it. When I was 10, I lost my parents in a car accident. My grandmother raised me, and she did her best, but I learned early that caring about people meant risking loss. So I stopped caring. I built walls, focused on success, told myself that achievement was safer than affection. But Emma, she looked at me today like I was someone worth caring about, like kindness was the most valuable thing I could offer. And for the first time in 28 years, I remembered what it felt like to matter to someone for reasons that had nothing to do with what I could do for them professionally. Emma's voice drifted in from the hallway as she chatted with a nurse about the ice chips. Sophia listened to her daughter's animated conversation, a soft smile crossing her face. She's been my whole world for 7 years, Sophia said quietly. Every decision I've made, every sacrifice, every hope for the future has been about giving Emma the best life I could. And now, facing the possibility that I might not be here to see her grow up, the thought of leaving her alone terrifies me more than dying. She won't be alone, Marcus said without thinking. Sophia turned to look at him directly. That's a big promise, Marcus. I know, but I mean it. Emma bounced back into the room carrying a small cup of iced chips, her face bright with accomplishment. The nurse said these are the good kind that taste like nothing. Mama, did you and Mr. Marcus have a good talk while I was gone? Sophia reached for her daughter's hand. We did, Mija. Mr. Marcus was telling me about how much he enjoyed meeting you today. Emma beamed and turned to Marcus. I was thinking while I was getting the ice that maybe you could meet some of my friends at school. They would be so excited to know I have a friend who runs a whole company. And maybe you could come to my school's reading day. I'm one of the best readers in my class, and I would love to read to you. The enthusiasm in Emma's voice was infectious, and Marcus found himself genuinely excited about the prospect of attending a second-grade reading day. I would love to hear you read, Emma. What's your favorite book? Oh, I have so many. But my most favorite is about a little girl who gets lost in a forest and meets all these animals who help her find her way home. The animals all have different talents, like one is really brave, and one is really smart, and one is really kind. And they teach her that she has special talents too. Mama always says I'm like that little girl because I'm good at finding the best things about people. Marcus looked at Emma with wonder. Here was a child who had every reason to be bitter, angry, or scared, yet she remained optimistic, loving, and determined to find goodness wherever she looked. She was facing the possible loss of her mother with more grace than Marcus had shown facing far lesser challenges in his own life. Emma, I think you're exactly like that little girl. And I think you've helped me remember some talents I had forgotten I possessed. Really? What kind of talents? Marcus glanced at Sophia, who was watching their interaction with careful attention. Well, I used to be pretty good at caring about people. I had just forgotten how to do it for a while. Emma nodded seriously. Sometimes people forget important things when they get busy or sad. But the good news is you can always remember them again if you really want to. That's what Mama taught me. The simple wisdom in her statement hit Marcus like a revelation. He had convinced himself that his emotional isolation was permanent, that he was simply built differently than people who formed lasting attachments. But Emma was right. He had chosen to forget how to care, which meant he could also choose to remember. Emma, would you like to come to my office sometime? I could show you what I do, and maybe you could help me remember some other important things I might have forgotten. Emma's eyes went wide with excitement. Really? I could come to your office? With the computers and everything? If your mama says it's okay, absolutely. Emma turned to her mother with pleading eyes. Mama, can I please go see Mr. Marcus's office? I promise I'll be really good and not touch anything I'm not supposed to touch. Sophia looked between her daughter and Marcus, and he could see her making a decision that went far beyond a simple office visit. She was choosing to trust him with her most precious treasure, despite every protective instinct telling her to be cautious. If Mr. Marcus is sure he doesn't mind having a very curious 7-year-old in his workplace, then, yes, you may visit his office. Emma let out a squeal of delight that brought nurses rushing to check on them. When she assured everyone she was fine, just excited, the staff retreated with smiles on their faces. It was clear that Emma had won the hearts of everyone who worked on her mother's floor. 3 weeks had passed since Marcus first met Emma outside the hospital, and his life had transformed in ways he never could have imagined. His penthouse office, once a sanctuary of solitary focus, now contained a small desk positioned near the window where Emma would sit during her visits, working on homework or drawing pictures while he handled business calls. His assistant Rachel had initially been shocked by the presence of a child in their corporate environment, but even she had fallen under Emma's spell within days. "Mr. Marcus," Emma said from her little desk, not looking up from the elaborate drawing she was working on. "Why do all the people who work for you look so serious all the time? Don't they ever laugh?" Marcus paused in his review of quarterly reports and looked around his office with fresh eyes. Emma was right. His employees moved through the sleek glass hallways like well-dressed robots, focused entirely on efficiency and productivity. When had he created an environment where laughter was seen as unprofessional? "I think maybe they've forgotten that work can be fun sometimes," Marcus admitted. "What do you think we should do about that?" Emma finally looked up from her drawing, her face bright with an idea. "We could show them. Mama always says the best way to teach people something is to show them how it's done. Maybe we could have a day where everyone remembers how to have fun while they work." The innocence of her suggestion hit Marcus with its simple brilliance. When had he decided that success required joylessness? When had he convinced himself that productivity and happiness were mutually exclusive? Looking at Emma, who managed to find wonder and excitement in everything despite facing circumstances that would crush most adults, Marcus realized he had a lot to learn about what truly mattered. "Emma, what would a fun work day look like to you?" She put down her crayon and turned in her chair to face him fully, clearly taking his question seriously. "Well, first everyone would smile when they said good morning to each other, instead of just nodding. And maybe there would be music playing softly so people could hum while they worked. And definitely there should be cookies, because everything is better with cookies. And maybe people could tell each other about the good things that happened to them yesterday, instead of just talking about work stuff all the time." Marcus found himself writing down her suggestions in his leather-bound notebook, the same notebook where he usually recorded million-dollar business strategies and merger details. But Emma's ideas felt more valuable than any deal he had ever structured. "These are excellent suggestions. Should we try implementing some of them?" Emma's eyes went wide with excitement. "Really? You would really change how your company works because of ideas I had?" "Emma, the best business leaders listen to good ideas no matter who has them. And these are very good ideas." The truth was, Marcus had been thinking a lot lately about the culture he had created at Williams Digital Solutions. In his drive for success, he had built a company that was profitable and efficient, but lacked warmth and human connection. His employees respected him, but didn't seem to genuinely like working there. They did excellent work because they were well-compensated professionals, not because they felt inspired or valued as people. Emma had been visiting his office 3 times a week for the past 3 weeks, usually for a couple of hours after school, while Sophia underwent her treatments. Initially, Marcus had worried about the disruption to his work routine, but what he discovered was that Emma's presence actually made him more focused and creative. Her questions about what he was doing forced him to explain complex concepts in simple terms, which often led to new insights about his own business practices. More surprisingly, his employees had begun requesting brief interactions with Emma. They would stop by his office to deliver reports and end up staying for 10 minutes to hear about Emma's latest school project or to answer her endless questions about what they did at the company. Marcus had noticed that people left these interactions with Emma smiling in ways he had never seen during their regular business meetings. "Mr. Marcus," Emma said, returning to her drawing, "can I ask you something kind of personal?" "Of course. You can ask me anything. Do you ever get lonely living in that big house all by yourself? I saw pictures of it on the computer when Rachel was showing me articles about your company, and it looked really big and kind of empty." The question caught Marcus off guard. He had convinced himself years ago that he enjoyed solitude, that his minimalist penthouse with its clean lines and lack of personal touches was a reflection of his sophisticated taste. But looking at it through Emma's eyes, he realized it probably did look lonely. Sometimes I do get lonely, he admitted. I never really thought about it before, but yes, sometimes that big house feels very quiet. Emma nodded thoughtfully. Mama and I live in a tiny apartment, but it never feels empty because we're together. She always says that home isn't about how much space you have. It's about how much love you have. Maybe your house would feel less lonely if you had people over sometimes. The simplicity of her observation was profound. Marcus realized he had never actually entertained in his penthouse. He had hosted business dinners in restaurants, attended networking events at hotels, but he had never invited anyone into his personal space. His home had become just another extension of his isolation. Emma, would you and your mama like to come have dinner at my house sometime? Maybe this weekend. Emma dropped her crayon in excitement. Really? We could have dinner at your house? Oh, Mama would love that. She's been feeling a little better this week, and the doctor said she might be able to leave the hospital for a few hours at a time soon. But are you sure you want us to come over? We might make your house messy. Marcus laughed, a sound that had become more frequent since Emma entered his life. I think my house could use a little messiness. It might make it feel more like a home. The truth was, Marcus had been looking for an excuse to spend more time with Sophia as well. During his regular visits to the hospital, he had grown to deeply respect Emma's mother. Despite her illness and fear, Sophia maintained an incredible strength of spirit. She asked thoughtful questions about his business, offered insights into human nature that surprised him with their depth, and somehow managed to make him feel like family even though they had known each other for less than a month. Sophia was also the most devoted parent Marcus had ever encountered. Every conversation, every decision, every hope she expressed centered around Emma's well-being and future. Watching Sophia's selfless love for her daughter had made Marcus realize how shallow his own understanding of love had been. He had always thought love was about intense emotions and grand gestures. But Sophia showed him that real love was about daily choices to put someone else's needs before your own, to find strength when you felt weak because someone was counting on you, to face impossible circumstances with grace because giving up wasn't an option when someone you loved needed you to keep fighting. Mr. Marcus, Emma said, interrupting his thoughts, I finished my drawing. Mr. Marcus, this is the best day I've had in so long. First I made a new friend, and now I get to see where my friend works. Mama, did you know Mr. Marcus has a company that helps people? I didn't know that, Mija. Mr. Marcus is a very important man who has chosen to be kind to us. Emma studied Marcus thoughtfully. You know what I think? I think you're not just kind because you chose to be. I think you're kind because that's who you really are inside, and you just needed someone to help you remember. As Marcus looked into Emma's trusting face, he realized she might be right. Maybe the walls he had built weren't protecting his true nature, but hiding it. Maybe the capacity for love and connection he thought he had lost had simply been waiting for the right person to help him find it again. Maybe that person was a 7-year-old girl who saw the best in everyone and believed that kindness was the most important quality a person could possess. And maybe, just maybe, she was about to teach him that the most successful thing he could ever do was learn to love someone more than he loved himself. Hitting on the concrete step, rain beginning to dampen his expensive suit. For the first time in years, he had completely forgotten about his meeting, about his schedule, about all the important business waiting for his attention. All he could think about was a little girl named Emma who had somehow managed to crack open his carefully guarded heart in the span of 30 minutes. Marcus pulled out his phone and called his assistant. Rachel, I need you to cancel my meetings for the rest of the afternoon. Something important has come up. Sir? Is everything all right? You never cancel meetings. Marcus looked toward the hospital entrance where Emma had disappeared. Everything is fine, Rachel. Better than fine, actually. I just remembered what's really important. As he stood up and brushed off his suit, Marcus realized his life had just taken a turn he never could have planned for. He had built his success on careful calculations and strategic decisions. But sometimes the most important moments in life couldn't be strategized or calculated. Sometimes they simply required showing up with an open heart and a willingness to care about someone other than yourself. He walked into the hospital, not sure exactly what he was going to say to Emma's mother, but knowing with absolute certainty that he couldn't walk away from this little girl who had asked for so little but needed so much. For the first time in his adult life, Marcus Williams was about to make a decision based purely on love rather than logic. And, somehow, that felt like the smartest thing he had ever done.